To access translation of the agenda,
Para accesar la traducción en la agenda,
click the top of the web page
por favor presionen la página del web
using the word English
usando la palabra inglés
for translation
para la traducción
into multiple languages.
y en múltiples lenguajes.
Meeting interpretation services
Los servicios de interpretación
are available via Zoom
están disponibles vía Zoom,
by clicking on the globe
presionando en el icono, en el globo,
icon
en el icono del globo,
at the bottom of the screen.
en la parte inferior de la pantalla.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item B2 is the land acknowledgement. We recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karkin, Ohlone peoples and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. I would like to welcome everyone to this meeting, regular meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified School District Board of Education. The mission of the West Contra Costa Unified School District is to prepare students for post-secondary education and to be responsible, thinking, contributing members of our global society. We believe in public education as the most important function in a democratic society. We believe we must, 1, treat everyone with courtesy, dignity, and respect. Provide safe and nurturing environments in which to learn, teach, work, and participate. Serve our students by working as partners with our community to develop well-rounded, lifelong learners and contributing members of a global society. Take responsibility for our behavior and performance to ensure the highest possible achievement of all students, employees, and our school community. Provide equitable and essential communication and support for successful learning, teaching, working, and participating. Respect, celebrate, and welcome the diversity, uniqueness, and contributions of all members of our school community. The board member should not subordinate the education of children and youth to any partisan principle, group interest, or the member's own personal interest. This meeting will provide public comment opportunities on agenda and non-agenda items through the Zoom app or by telephone. We have changed the public comment format, which will now occur at the beginning of the meeting. Public comment will last for 1 hour and includes any agendized item. The time allotted for each speaker has also been extended to 2 minutes. To indicate your desire to speak on an agenda item, raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing *9. if accessing the meeting by phone. In order to be recognized to speak, your hand must be raised before public comment begins. Tonight, I will be making an effort to speak slower myself for translation, and so that is why I am reading at a different pace this evening. Dr. Hurst, may we have the roll call?
Yes, sir. President Phillips,
Here.
Trustee Clerk Smith Folds,
Present. Good evening.
Trustee Reckler,
Good evening to everyone present.
Trustee Gonzalez Hoy,
Good evening, present.
and Trustee Christian.
Good evening, present.
Hoorah, all present and accounted for.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a report from closed session?
Yes, we do, President Phillips. In closed session, the board voted unanimously to affirm former Superintendent Duffy's denial of a complaint against an employee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are now about to begin public comment. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to allow everyone to get their hands up. Once public comment starts, we won't be accepting new people. So please raise your hand if you would like to comment. Going once, going twice, gone. We have 3 people.
Okay, I will set us up. Our first public speaker tonight is Joseph Glatzer.
Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Glatzer, 7th grade history teacher at Hercules Middle. So first of all, thank you for, I think you've ratified the new contract, I'm assuming. So thank you for doing that. That's extremely important on our class size. And I'm already seeing the impact on my rosters in Power School. It's extremely exciting to be able to give the focus to my students who need it the most. Also, hello to the board, familiar faces and also new faces. It's been a while since I've spoken. Also, thank you for the great new public comment system. For everybody who helped to make this change, it's going to make a big difference for people having their input. However, I do think people should be able to raise their hand once public comment starts, as long as there's time within that hour, I think, allotted. So I'm strongly in favor of increasing the sub pay. It's long overdue. It gets very difficult as a teacher when you have to take students into your already large class in elementary. And for secondary like me, it means sometimes going across campus to take over a class with students who may or may not be yours as well, missing your chance to lesson plan or grade during your prep period, then rushing back to get back to your class in time and maybe have a chance to go to the bathroom before the next class starts. Also, sometimes the class you're going to is locked and you have to send a student to get the CSO or custodian. It can be very stressful. In fact, I think the sub pay needs to be even higher than what's proposed, but please do approve this important increase. Besides the negative impact on teachers and students, subs just seem to get paid more. I used to do it and it's not an easy job. So thank you, Trustee Recklers and Gonzalez, for your work on the charter oversight overhaul. As a teacher and citizen, I don't think we need a parallel school system, publicly financed but privately run for profit, which gets to choose their own students and then brags about their test scores. I think we need strong oversight and accountability, and any charter schools which are operating in an unethical or illegal way should be revoked. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next public speaker is Jose De Leon.
Good afternoon, board members. Also, welcome Ms. Martin, and good afternoon, Superintendent Hurst. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody. We're getting ready to finish up summer school. I'd like to thank all the efforts of the teachers and the administrators that made summer school possible. I think we were able to support many students to get back into the role of school. We also want to make sure to remind everyone that we're here to help in supporting the reopening of school, and that more information that can come from the district that we can support our community in understanding the process for August. We're here to support with that process also. Excited for graduation for summer students. Will be tomorrow at 6. Hope to see you there for graduation. We're expecting a good group of students from all the different high schools. Once again, we're looking forward to being back in person, and more information to our community will help out that transition. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Our last public speaker is Don Gosney.
Thank you. You know, one of the first acts of this new board was to eliminate the standing reports by groups like the African American Parent Advisory Committee and the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. These groups would routinely present reports to the board and the public. Instead of presenting our reports at a widely seen meeting during the evening hours, we were told that we could present our reports to the subcommittees at their meetings held during the middle of the workday, when virtually no one was watching. We were also told that the board members at these committees would then forward our reports to the full board. Except after 6 months, not a single report has been forwarded to the board. And now we're being told that instead of being allowed to comment on each and every agenda item, when the item comes up, we have to combine all of our comments into one radically abbreviated set of comments made long before we're even allowed to hear the presentations. After this new policy was implemented, we heard boasting from the board about how efficient the meetings now are, with board members expressing their glee in completing a board meeting at 9:38 instead of much later. Of course, this new efficiency was only attained by silencing input from the community. I'm having a tough time understanding why our elected officials are so reluctant to hear from their constituents. They swore an oath to represent each and every one of us, not just those in their wards, but every living soul in the district. Yet they go out of their way to silence the public at board meetings and their afternoon subcommittee meetings. With the CBOC, for instance, with regards to the proposed board policy put together by staff, we're being told that the board has no interest in hearing from the 3 most experienced persons offering input from their combined 50 plus years of experience with the CBOC and the bond program, and will only listen to the 1 person who only has about 1 year of experience. As a member of the public, I've tried numerous times to reach out to members of the board to discuss the many complex issues before them so they can make informed decisions. I suspect it's because of the vast number of lengthy meetings they have on their plate, but it may be for other reasons too, but it's incredibly difficult to actually speak with the board members. What is it about listening to the public that this board has such a problem with? Why is this board working so hard to exclude the public from their process of managing the school district and the hundreds of millions of tax dollars that we send their way?
That concludes our public comment.
Thank you to everybody who called in for public comment. We are now going to go on to item. Slow down. We are now about to go on to item B7, which is agenda review and adoption. Starting with Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy. Board, is there anything that you would like to remove from the consent calendar? Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy, you shook your head no?
I don't, thank you.
Mrs. Reckler?
President Phillips, if we can check in with Mr. Freese, please. I believe there was a name that was incorrect in one of the contracts that may need to just be restated for clarity for the record.
Dr. Hurst?
Correct.
Yes, Mr. Freeze, can you read the correct form of that word phrase, please?
Yes, for item C9, award a contract for Pinole Valley High School. The water contract would go to CWS Construction. There was a typo. It was listed as CSW. So again, the award of contract is CWS Construction.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith Folds,
Yes, I would like to pull C2. Do you want me to tell you the specific contract I would like to pull or just pull the entire C2?
how about you say the specific contract?
Okay, it is the, I don't want to get the title wrong. Give me 1 second.
No problem.
The San Diego County Office of Education is the vendor. Oh, you know what, Mr. Freeze, is that the right one? I'm trying to pull the one that says West Contra Costa Unified School District Consultant Contract Services Summary. And this is the one, am I pulling the right one, Mr. Freeze? Is with Marcy Williams, I believe it is with the,
If you could tell me the vendors, C14 would list professional service contracts.
can I tell you the consultant is California State University, East Bay College of Education? That's the one I'm talking about.
That would not be C14.
Okay,
That would have to be under C2.
okay, that's the one. Mr. Phillips, do you need that repeated?
Please say it again. Cal
I'm
State
clo-
East Bay?
Yes, California State University, East Bay College of Education contract.
Got it. Thank you. Christian,
That's it.
Nothing to pull.
okay. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda minus the Cal State East Bay contract and with the change of CWS on the Pinole item?
So moved, President Phillips.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'm happy to second that. Reckler, second.
Thank you. Moved by Gonzalez Hoy, seconded by Reckler. On to the vote.
Sorry, Gonzalez Hoy, yes.
Reckler, yes.
Smith Folds, yes.
Christian, yes.
Phillips, yes. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go on to item B8, which is approval of minutes for June 23, 2021. Starting with Mr. Gonzalez Hoy, are there any corrections?
I did not have any corrections. Thank you, President Phillips.
Reckler,
I have nothing, thank you.
Smith Folds,
No corrections.
Christian,
Nothing.
I don't have any either. Can I have a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Gonzalez Hoy. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Christian. On to the vote.
Gonzalez Hoy, yes.
Reckler, yes.
Smith Folds, yes.
Christian, yes.
Phillips, yes. Motion carries. We are now on to item C, which is consent. Can I please have a motion to approve the remaining consent calendar?
I move to approve the remainder of the consent calendar.
Moved by Gonzalez Hoy. Is there a second?
I'm happy to
Second.
second that.
Seconded by Reckler. I'm getting you on the next one, Christian. On to the vote.
Gonzalez Hoy, yes.
Reckler, yes.
Smith Folds, yes.
Christian, yes.
Phillips, yes. Thank you very much. We are now on item D, which is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Nancy, can we bring up the presentation, please? So we wanted to say, first of all, good evening to everyone and start off by recognizing, as Mr. DeLeon has said, all of the hard work and effort put on by all of our summer school employees and staff and teachers and our principals and our leaders. We wanted to say we appreciate you. And this is just simply a collage that was taken of activities and our students, especially during summer school. So we wanted to highlight them right now and just say thank you for all of our employees for your hard work and for our students as well. It was good to have you back in person and to see you out and about. So we wanted to start off with that celebration. And if we can go to our next slide. So we have been very consistent in our messaging about the conversation that took place May 5th with our board and the decision as well. And very consistent with our messaging around the district will reopen for 100% in-person learning this fall. I wanted to pause because there has been some questions around this about students. Absolutely, yes, 100% of our students in-person fall. That applies to our adults as well, our teachers. That has been a question that has been asked, and I wanted to share that out front. There also has been a question about employees across the district. That does apply to all of our employees as well, that we'll be coming back 100% in person. So I wanted to highlight that to everyone. And if we can go to our next slide. Before I begin this exchange summary from the thought exchange, I wanted to just pause for a second and thank all of our employees and our leaders for their hard work and their effort. Really, since I've been on board, everyone has really delved into the work of planning for the fall reentry. From our parents, our students have participated, our teachers have participated in this process, community members, board members as well, and our leaders, employees. So thank you for your hard work. I wanted to just share as well, we had a thought exchange conversation where we wanted to get feedback, and it was based around a question, an overall driving question. It was, what are your biggest hopes and what makes you nervous about our plan for the fall return to school? I started off by really sharing with you that safety is certainly paramount for us, but I wanted to just share with you some thoughts from this process. So if we can go to the next slide. We wanted to highlight that there were 321 individuals that clicked onto the survey, which is a little bit different from the actual participants that you'll see on the next slide. So go to the next slide, please. So here's what I'm talking about, the actual participants in the survey. You can see the breakdown, 191 or 76% were parents. You see 14 or 5% were students, 28 certificated employees, 7 classified, 7 community members, and then 5 others. So we wanted to highlight that information. Next slide. But also we wanted to just share with you just a breakdown by school. And I'm gonna just kind of share, these are the schools that was really represented in the thought exchange process. So you could see certainly on this first page, there's some standouts at Bayview and a few at Betty Reed Soskins, our newly named middle school. And then also you could see some standouts at De Anza and Dover and a few at Coronado. Next slide. Also want to highlight some standouts on this slide. You see El Cerrito High School had 15 participants. Ellerhorst, Hannah Ranch, Hercules Middle School, and Kensington certainly had a bigger participation than the others on this particular slide. Next one. On this particular slide, you can see Korematsu Middle School, certainly a standout, and then also Alinda, a big standout here in Mira Vista as well. Next slide. On this slide, you can see Richmond High School, it's a standout, and also Terra Hills and West County Mandarin School. Next slide. What I liked about the word cloud, we really looked at everything that was put into the thought exchange, and of course, the larger the word is, the more that the more thoughts around this particular process. So you see wear or wearing mask was really big. You can see also individuals were nervous. That was pretty big as well. COVID, Delta variant, classrooms, children, vaccinated as well. So just wanted to highlight this piece. And again, this just represents the thoughts that were out there, and the larger the word, the more it was shared. Next slide. And these are just some comments. As we get further in the slides, we'll be able to talk about some of these comments, but some key thoughts, we'll just share some of them. The concern about whether or not when our kids come back, will they be able to socialize normally? And then also another comment about children and their hope about their children. Children will be able to reconnect socially, so their connection there. And will kids get to learn in person and play with their friends as well? Next slide. And here, we wanted to share with you the top themes by total thoughts. The first one, if you can't see that, the first one is really unthemed, and these are just individual or singletons. So there was a lot of singleton ideas, and it wasn't enough to capture a general theme. So that's what that really means, unthemed. And then the back to school, that just represents that there was some concerns or thoughts around just coming back to school. The hopes of kids was just thoughts around that they're hopeful, or that people had some thoughts around being hopeful that kids will be returning back to school. The learning was concerns or thoughts around what learning will look like for our kids when it comes back, when they come back. The vaccinations for kids was just what it says. Some thoughts and concerns around kids being vaccinated or not being vaccinated. And then the plain vaccination was for the adults and our younger kids or our older kids, and just thoughts around those vaccinations for those students as well and adults. The mask wear is just as it sounds, just some thoughts around wearing of mask. And then the option really means alternative options or alternative learning options for our students, and some thoughts around that. We see some COVID concerns and some Delta variant concerns. Next slide. And again, these are almost the same thoughts here, but these are by score. So you could see that the higher scores out of 5 stars, you can see that there was some thoughts and themes around kids and sickness, and lunch and how that's going to be served and whether it's going to be in the classroom, wearing of mask, and just safety overall. Class sizes was a thought. COVID overall, the Delta variant, and then hopefulness about kids returning, what will learning look like? And then there again was a lot of unthemed thoughts as well. Next slide. And these are just some general comments. What I will say about the thought exchange process, they still are trying to organize the data, so we were able to capture some thoughts. But I'll just share a couple of them with you. Out of the sick kids category, there's a concern here about if their children is too sick for in-person, that they should still be able to follow the day at home. So this is just some thoughts around the sick kids category. Next slide. Also, this represents some thoughts around lunchroom or lunch classrooms and lunch in the classrooms. And this is one thought that says classrooms are tight, students and desks fill most of the portable classrooms. How would they stay safe and transmission of COVID-19 be prevented? And we'll talk about some of this in the following slides as well. But again, this just represents some thoughts. And then this one is a category that I just shared earlier, but this is around the wearing of masks. And this one has one, I'll read at the bottom, it says, continue to wear a mask and encourage kids to wash their hands. So again, it just represents thoughts in this particular category. And next slide. So that was just represented some information, some data from the thought exchange process. And we wanted to make sure that we shared some of that information with you. And just to let the public know and the board know that data is still being synthesized. And as we get more up-to-date data, we'll be able to share that out at another setting. But we really wanted to highlight the hard work that has been happening, and what we've been very consistent in sharing is that we're going to regularly report out the work, and we're going to share our progress. But also, as we shared, beginning on the 19th, we're going to start sharing this out to the general public. What I will say is that we are still gathering information. We're still planning as well, but we're sharing this out as we stated on the 19th. We still solicit your feedback, and we still solicit your questions. And at the very end, I'll show you how to get your questions to us so we can respond. Next slide. So this really represents the work that's been happening in the instructional core group and social and emotional learning group. And we talked about the virtual academy before, and we know that Principal Edith Jordan McCormick is going to be the principal of the virtual academy. Next slide. So one of the things we wanted to share about our virtual academy is the location is going to be at the old Portola campus. There'll be 3 classrooms that's used. And this is really an application process for an orientation. And in talking with Principal McCormick, that's what she really wanted me to communicate to you, that it is an application process, and it's very different from the regular education process, and it is an alternative learning environment. And what we wanted to share is that for those students, those families who are interested in this process, it will look very different from the regular traditional setting. It will be virtual in nature. But I will share with you that it will meet all the A through G requirements. So we will have ELA, we will have mathematics, we will have foreign language as well for our students to take. But it is in a virtual setting. So we wanted to make that very clear up front, but also share that there will be some data gathering from that team at the virtual academy, from Ms. McCormick's team. And they'll look at reading scores, and they'll also look at math scores and do an assessment as well. And there'll be an orientation for students and the families, and really a conversation to see if that's the right fit for you. But really, for our families and students who really have had a really strong experience with online virtual learning and distance learning, this may be an option for you. But what we'll do at the end of this virtual academy presentation, we'll share with you how to contact Principal McCormick so that you can sit down with that team and go through an orientation and an application process to see if this is the right fit for your child, for your student. The virtual academy will be both synchronous, so on time, in time, and then asynchronous instruction for portions of the school day. There will not be dual language opportunities. In other words, what we mean here, it won't be a 50-50 model where it's Spanish or Mandarin along with English at the same time. However, I wanted to clarify this is very different from foreign language. There are foreign language opportunities, so students who are looking to meet the A through G requirements in an alternative setting, this could be for you. And again, dual language won't be available. However, foreign language is available. We also wanted to highlight that students who are on the IEP or individualized educational program, they'll have to meet with the IEP team prior to being enrolled or going through the application process and orientation process for the virtual school. Next slide. We also wanted to share that once you have been identified to attend the virtual academy, students can switch back to in-person learning. But we have to remember, if that school, if your home school is full, then you'll have to look at another school to go to. So that's why we have here where space is available at another school at their grade level. And that can happen at any point throughout the semester for a student who wants to go back to in-person learning from the virtual academy. We also wanted to highlight for high school students that we will pause on transfers during the last 3 weeks of the semester to ensure that credit acquisition is not interrupted. And then we also, as I just shared, families cannot hold a space at the current in-person school while they're participating in the virtual school. And again, it will be based on, does your homeschool have space available if you want to go back to in-person learning? And this is the part I really wanted to share with you, that families who are really interested in applying for the virtual academy, I did speak with Principal McCormick, and she wanted me to relate to all of you to please, if you're interested, if you believe that this is the best fit for your child, the virtual academy, to please email her at edithjordan-mccormick at WCCUSD.net, and please set up an appointment with her and her team. At the very end, I'll also share with you that there's going to be an opportunity for there to be a webinar that Ms. McCormick is going to sponsor, and I'll share with you when that webinar is going to be, and we'll be getting more information to you. We want you to be well informed about the virtual academy. Next slide. We also wanted to share the hard work that's been happening with our instructional core group, but also social emotional core group. And I wanted to share with our board especially, this will probably look familiar to you because at the very beginning, I remember a couple of board members started talking about a restorative start or reimagining the learning experience. And I brought back a framework and I shared it with the board. And now I'll just talk to the public about it, that this is the work that our instructional core group is engaged in and moving toward. And as I shared, there's a lot of planning that still needs to happen, but these are the conversations that we're engaged in. So this will be a reminder to our board. There were 5 key components that I shared with you from that document. If you remember, one of the sources of the document came from EdSource, and it really talked about what we could do together to reimagine how we start schools. So one of those components that we're engaged in conversation is around centered relationships. And this is really about prioritizing, building, and nurturing relationships. And one of the points that I'll mention to you is that in this framework, it really talks about we need to carve out time during the school day to build those relationships for our students and our staff and be very intentional about that. And then also we need to look at our discipline practices. And this is something that you heard me say again and again, that we're going to challenge throughout the year. We're going to have these conversations with our administrators about making sure we keep our kids inside the classroom, and what would that look like? So that's what we mean when we say implement positive and restorative discipline practices. I've also been very clear also about our data and where we stand with our suspensions and our expulsions and our chronic absenteeism. So these conversations are needed. And this is what we're moving toward. Also, one of the components was addressing the whole child needs. And this is really the social emotional component, the mental health. And we've heard even our board talk about the need for extra support. And I think we've heard that. We've hired additional counselors, but we also need to have partners that's going to engage with our students as well. But this really talks also about assessing our students, make sure we have data in front of us to examine any learning loss, and for our teachers to plan accordingly, and also ensuring that we have an individual educational plan not just for our special needs students, but for all of our students so that we meet the whole child needs of our students. Next slide. Other conversations in the instructional core and social emotional group is how we're working towards strengthening staffing and partnerships. This has been an ongoing conversation that I've had as well about the concept of asset mapping, knowing where our partners are, our resources are as well, and how we all contribute to moving our students forward and our organization forward. Another component that this group has been involved in is making teaching and learning relevant and rigorous. So the conversations that they've been having and will continue to have is making sure we have high quality curriculum and making sure that it's culturally relevant. Also, professional learning and moving toward addressing racism is a key focus of this group, privilege and bias in the classrooms. And also, as you've heard me say again and again, student choice and student voice is part of these conversations that we're moving forward with as well. And this all leads to the last one, which is really how we're going to rebuild the system by building teams, which again goes along with the concept of asset mapping and bringing key people to the table to move our organization forward. Next slide. So that was the instructional core group, hard at work in their conversations that they continue to have. But operational group, what I will say is a lot of what you're going to see from the operational group is coming straight from CDPH K through 12 guidance. And if you can go to the next slide. So this is one of the opening phrases that I literally pulled out from the guidance and wanted to just share with you. And a lot of this information just recently came out on the 12th, but clearly it says in California, the surest path to safe and full in-person instruction at the outset of the school year, as well as minimizing missed school days on an ongoing basis, is a strong emphasis on vaccination, masking, full in-person learning, targeted quarantine practices, and a robust COVID-19 testing program. And those are the things that we're focusing on coming back. Next slide. So we wanted to talk about masking. We also wanted to share with the recent guidance as well. Masks are one of the most effective and simplest safety mitigation layers to prevent in-school transmission of COVID-19. We know it's an aerosol. We also know that the Delta variant is an aerosol as well. And we also know that the science says that masking is one of the most effective things that we can do. In our perspective and what we're sharing with the community, how we're going to move forward as WCCUSD is that K-12 students will be required to mask indoors unless they have an exemption, which we will work with students and adults on that exemption as well. Masks are optional outdoors for all in K-12 school settings. Adults in K through 12 school settings are required to wear a mask as well when sharing indoor spaces with students. So we wanted to be very clear on the masking protocols, that everyone will be required to wear a mask indoors. And I just want to clarify that includes passing periods. So doesn't mean you get to take your mask off in passing periods. So from one class to the next, the mask stays on. The places where masks will be allowed to come off will be at the lunch area when you're eating your lunch. During recess, the mask will be able to come off. During PE, masks will be able to come off. And of course, during athletic activities. Other than that, the mask will be on for students. So that's our stance. So I wanted to just be very clear on that. Next slide. So physical distancing. So again, this has been relaxed, and I have been expecting physical distancing to be relaxed. But here's what we want to share. And I shared this at the very beginning, that recent evidence indicates that in-person instruction can occur safely without minimum physical distancing requirements. when other mitigation strategies such as masking are implemented. So again, that's why we're taking the stance that masking, especially indoors, will be mandated. But what we're also saying about physical distancing is that we're going to comply with the CDPH and CDC guidance. And they recommended 3 feet social distancing whenever possible. However, we also want to be very clear that all of our students are coming back. And when our students come in the classroom and we can't maintain 3 feet, that's why the masking mitigation strategy is extremely important. But we want to be very clear that 3 feet is our standard, but there will be cases where that cannot happen, especially because all of our students are coming back. Next slide. So we wanted to share about meals. We've had a lot of conversations about meals. Breakfast and lunch will be served daily to all students. Food services will provide each student a prepackaged meal. So we've had a lot of conversation about prepackaged meals. I want to be very clear, there will be opportunities for hot meals as well, but they will be prepackaged as well. We start off the school year, it will be prepackaged meals, and then we will advance after a few weeks to those prepackaged hot meals as well. Students may not sit across from each other while they're eating indoors. And I just shared one is an aerosol. So we want to make sure that our students are not sitting across from each other. We're also recommending that we're school sites going to have this conversation about looking for opportunities for students to eat outside and what that will look like. So the next one, we said principals will create a schedule that allows breakfast and lunch to be served while meeting the above safety guidelines. Secondary service will be at service windows. So we will have carts and windows where students can also gather their meals or prepackaged meals in an open air environment. The standard will always be physical distancing as much as possible while eating, but especially indoors. Next slide. For transportation, we wanted to just be very clear that for our transportation that's public nature, ACT Transit and WestCat, we'll have full seating capacity on its bus lines. This is according to the CDPH guidelines. We also want to be very clear that all students and passengers will be required to wear masks while they're on public transit. And also for our own students with special needs riding our first students buses, they will meet the same requirements. And also there will be ventilation. Windows will be halfway down. But again, we know that AC Transit and WestCat is public transit, so they kind of dictate what happens on those buses. Next slide. And so screening. So we want to share with you that we will not be doing screening at the schools. So that is going to be the responsibility of our parents in our homes, that we have a daily home screening. We will have this posted. It is posted on our webpage, but we also want to share that it is the parents' responsibility when our kids are coming back to make sure that they're screening their child's health on a daily basis. And I want to just share that this slide deck will be available on our website. There is a link here. Our parents can go to this link and actually do a self-check. We're not going to open it now, but it will allow the parents to go through a series of questions to make sure that their child has passed the screening. And then also, all staff and students will conduct a self-health screen before they arrive to campus. And then also our staff can use the QR code process, which is really this self-screening process that allows you to scan a QR code and go through that process and ask those questions. Next slide. So when we talk about hand hygiene, we're really talking about the stations, the sanitization stations that are all around our school campuses, but especially inside the classrooms. So those are posted. It will not allow extra time for our students in passing periods. So since those hand sanitization stations are inside the classroom, the expectation is that they're using those stations to sanitize their hands on a regular basis. Next slide. And then also cleaning protocols, disinfecting protocols will still be in place as our students are coming back as well. Next slide. We also want to share with our parents, our community, and our students that when they enter the campus, our school gates will be clearly marked. We'll have the appropriate signage up that's indicating where students can enter. And we're going to engage in a conversation with our principals that we're hoping that there's a single point of entry or access. However, in talking with our principals, if that's not possible, just because of the sheer number of students, then we want to make sure that all those access points have staff, so we can make sure that we are sharing with students and reminding them about masking, but also about social distancing and not gathering. Next slide. And really entry into campus for elementary and secondary is going to be roughly the same. The expectation is that students wear a cloth or a surgical mask when entering school. And that the expectation is as well that those without a mask or those who come without a mask, that we will be obligated to provide those masks to our students, but also to adults. And we are aware of that, and we have ordered those masks as well. Once on campus, students will walk into assigned areas and the markings, obeying the markings, especially the directionality. Next slide. And this is the same for secondary students as they enter into the campus. Next slide. Exiting the campus or the school, all efforts will be made to ensure appropriate distancing. So those will be conversations that happen with our principal to make sure that we have active supervision and making sure we're sharing that with our students. We'll also be sending out messages about prearranged pickup spots for our students and waiting at a certain location or a common location when being picked up by a parent or an adult. Next slide. We also wanted to share with you that we'll still have our protocols in place for if a student is positive, or even if an adult is positive, and what happens. We will still have our isolation rooms in place. So if we have potentially an infected student, they'll be in a designated isolation room. And we have our protocols in place as well on what we do for our next steps, if that is the case, and the contact tracing that we have in place as well. Next slide. We also wanted to share with you that we are assembling your questions. And what we'll do is we'll take all of your questions and we'll have a centralized location for you to submit your questions. And we'll accumulate all of these frequently asked questions, and they will go on our website. And I'll read just a few of these for you. It talks about what's the vision for fall. 5 days a week, all day. Is it different for secondary? And our response is the plan for all grade levels and grade spans is 100% in-person learning, 5 days per week, all day. Also, there's a question here about how will we mitigate potential learning loss? So there is an attachment here that really talks about assessing our students, and I did share this earlier. It's really important that we get the right data in front of our teachers so they're able to make those decisions about where our students are and how they plan together to meet the needs of those students. There's a question here about SPED students and transportation. And it does say as of fall, first students will resume seating capacity to the conditions that they were prior to COVID-19 restrictions. The question about vaccines and are they mandatory? They are not mandatory for staff or students. Can students play together on the yard? Yes. Under current CDPH guidelines, students will be allowed to play together. while they're supervised by school staff. And again, the key thing for all of us to remember is the social distancing that we'll be expecting. Next slide. And then there's a question just around safety protocols, and then a question also around what happens if a student or staff reports positive and the protocol that we'll have in place. And then will students be able to have off-campus lunch? And the answer is no. Their breakfast and lunch will be on campus for all students for the 2021-22 school year. So these are some questions that we have been able to assemble. If you can go to the next slide. So I wanted to close this out by just sharing, we are still soliciting your questions, and we are committed, and we promise to get back to you very quickly. We'll accumulate all of your questions and our responses through this link, feedback@wccusd.net. It'll go to certain people, we'll respond, and we'll post it on the front of our webpage. And then also I promise to share with you about the virtual academy that Principal McCormick will lead an informational session on the virtual academy on Thursday, July the 22nd, from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And again, I just want to reiterate, if you're considering that experience for your child, for your student, then email Principal McCormick and show up for the orientation and possibly applying for the virtual academy. Next slide. Then we wanted to close just with some upcoming events that we have. Of course, we know the extended learning graduation ceremony at Richmond is tomorrow. Redistricting commission applications are due for trustee area 3, Monday, July 19th. Freedom School's National Day of Social Action at King Elementary, Wednesday, July 21st. The Anza High School Enrichment Week for 9th and 10th graders, Monday, July 26th. Independent Redistricting Commission via Zoom, July 27th on Tuesday. Management team meeting, Wednesday, Thursday, August 4th and 5th. And I'll just share with you, that's our big day for all of our leaders across our district, some exciting things that's going to be happening that's going to propel us into the beginning of our school year, starting on August 16th. Then you see meal box distribution, 9 schools, Thursdays through August 5th. And then first day of school, August 16th. Thank you so much. That concludes my report, sir.
Thank you very much for that report, Dr. Hurst. Board members, now is your opportunity to ask questions. Please limit your questions to items that he actually addressed in his report. Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy, you are first.
Thank you, President Phillips, and thank you, Dr. Hurst, for the report. I already sent you about 20 questions, and if it's okay, just take a second just for the public. The board members were all meeting with Dr. Hurst and his team on Friday to answer questions that we might have on the plan. I plan on releasing my questions to the public through my social media. So I just want to make it clear because I'm not going to be asking many questions tonight. I just have 2. So I apologize, President Phillips, for taking that moment just to explain to the public. My 2 questions, my first one, Dr. Hurst, is I didn't see much about independent study, which I know it's a requirement on the bill the governor signed for families and students that can't return to in-person. Could you explain the difference between independent study and the virtual school?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to allow our new CAO, Ms. Martin, to jump in on this. We've been talking about this today.
Hi, good evening, Trustee Hoy.
Good evening.
Hi. So I would say that the difference between independent study is that you have independent study that is short-term and long-term. There's an ed code on independent study, which is ed code 51745-51749.3. The difference between that and distance learning virtual school, we're not we're not calling it distance learning, but virtual schooling, is that you have to have synchronous and asynchronous instruction for virtual school. You do not have to, in fact, have that for independent study. So a parent can choose independent study, which could be short-term or long-term. If it's short-term, you typically stay within your school community because it's short-term. But if it's long-term, meaning you're deciding that I want to do independent study for the entire school year, then you would in fact disenroll from your school. Short-term independent study is typically only about 30 days. And so therefore that's the difference. And then with virtual school, what the governor's bill is saying is that you have to provide synchronous and asynchronous instruction, which is not actually called for in independent study. So that's the difference.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martin. I appreciate that explanation. And my other question, which I know that many of us have gotten, is when will schools release their, not school calendar, but their school hours to families and staff?
So I'm gonna let our CEO talk about that. I know that we are actually collecting all of their schedules right now. So I know the communication went out. I just got the information also in my inbox about all of their schedules. So can you address that, Ms. Martin?
I can. So instructional minutes, as Dr. Hurst has named, are being collected currently. Many are already in. However, obviously with principals being off during the summer, they have not been uploaded to their website. So what I have asked is that the communications team actually start uploading them to the school website so that parents can access them immediately. Because we know schools are not, the principals are not necessarily there. So we have asked communications to upload the instructional minutes and schedules to their website, and that should be done shortly.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, go ahead.
Definitely by the close of next week, they will be up.
Perfect. Thank you. I was going to ask for perfect. That explains it. Okay. Thank you both. That is my last question for now. President Phillips, that's it.
Thank you very much, sir. Mrs. Reckler.
Yes, thank you. So if I might follow up on Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy's question on independent study, because I had this written down. How or what are the conditions under which a child or a family chooses this option? And is it done at the school site, or are they referred to the virtual school? Can you tell us a little bit about how you envision this working?
Hello, Trustee Reckler. So
yeah, hi.
Hi. We are going to, a parent would name to the school community that they are, to the principal admin, that they are interested in virtual school. They will then be directed to the transfer office. The transfer office will then process them having a orientation with Vista, because they cannot be accepted until they in fact do an orientation. The reason for the orientation is to ensure that parents understand the requirement of independent study virtual school and ensure that this is in fact something that they are committed to for their student and that they want. And then after that determination, Principal McCormick would then assign them to Vista, and they would be disenrolled from the transfer office from their home school.
But is this for what you're talking about now? Is this for the governor's plan? Because so for the governor's plan as well, our virtual option will satisfy the what the governor has put forth?
Yes.
It will, because my understanding is that it had to be site specific. It does not? No. Okay. So if anybody is interested in that, they can work, we can do this through the virtual school that's been created.
Yes.
Okay.
I researched many other districts, and it is actually an add-on to what already exists in terms of an independent study school. So Vista already existed as an independent study school. And so therefore you can do an add-on and have a virtual school for students as long as you're offering the synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And there's other requirements that are built into that are different from independent study. And Ms. McCormick and her staff, which she has 4 staff members who have been assigned to this virtual academy, which are different from her teachers who are assigned to independent study, are prepared to receive students if this is an option for parents. And there are certain requirements that she and I have gone over that she is very well prepared to put in place and that are actually already in place for Vista.
Okay, thank you. My next question is that there is, obviously there's voluminous information that parents and students need to know. I mean, it's really a large communication effort to get everybody on the same page. There's going to be different things for elementary versus, the secondaries, et cetera. What do you guys see as the plan to disseminate all this information to parents and students?
So the communication group has been working on the plan, but what I can share with you, Trustee Reckler, I was just talking to another trustee about this today. And what we intend to do is to have further sort of like Facebook Live sessions where parents can call in by grade span. So an example I was sharing with another trustee is that we really want to look at our elementary, because as you shared, each grade span has different needs. So what it would look like, or what it could look like, is having a Facebook Live session for our elementary school parents, and it could be by region, but primarily grade span, and just having those parents call in, and they'll have the opportunity to just ask questions. There'll be some scripted questions and responses that a team of leaders and experts. We imagine principals being part of this team of experts, but also directors and leaders at the district office and myself. And just imagine having sessions where just elementary parents can call in, or students, and they can ask whatever question they want to. And it worked out really well for me in another district. And it was really an opportunity for people to just get their questions answered. And then there will be another session also for middle school or high school as well, and just really individualized just to that group of parents and just meeting their needs and answering their questions. But as far as a strategy of getting all of this information out, I do know that Bobby and his team has been working on a plan to get everything out, and we do have a plan to get all of this information out beginning the 19th. But as you have shared, there is a lot of information to get out. There are so many questions, and even my conversation with one trustee earlier, I was talking with this individual and I would address a question, but then more questions would come up. And I think that's what's going to happen also with our parents. But we're committed to having this process where people can either email us, and we have a structured way where this information is going to be processed and put on the website. But also we're thinking through a series of Facebook Live sessions where people can just have an open mic and just ask their question and get their answers.
Okay, thank you. The other piece that came to me through the thought exchange, I mean, I knew this was going to happen because it's the middle of the summer, and I know we had this discussion about the summertime and like how it goes completely dead. So we didn't have the robust participation that we might at a different time. But, to me, looking at what I saw, I mean, health and safety concerns just up and in front. I mean, there is a lot of concern about health and safety. How can the district help people feel comfortable, confident? Are there any plans for more vaccine sessions? Have you given any thought to having the Contra Costa County Health Director answer questions, Delta variant. I mean, it's a shifting. So has there been any thought around
Yeah,
that specifically?
I can share with you that we talk, we being the superintendents, and then Lynn Mackey every Monday about this. And I know she has asked for school districts to set up vaccination sites, especially the first week of school. So I know I put that message out myself to all of our leaders, and a number of our leaders, especially secondary, have volunteered. And I think we're probably going to have 8 to 10 sites that are going to be vaccination sites the first week. So we'll definitely get that word out. I think this conversation that we're having right now, especially you bringing this up, is certainly going to help me and my planning with the executive team and with all of our leaders on what else can we do to promote the message around safety. So I'll take that to heart and continue to meet with our team as well around that. But we do have vaccination shot sites that's going to be set up.
Okay, I think I think that might be helpful. The other question I have is,
Trustee Reckler, is it okay if we go to the next person? I'm asking everybody to try to do 4 questions this evening, so we're all doing the same thing.
President Phillips, it's not Passover. It's not just 4 questions.
I know it's not Passover, but some of us have to go to work and all those kind of things in the morning, and it's very difficult on staff and board members when we don't get out on time.
Okay, well, we are talking about one of the most important things we're going to do probably this year, which is to send kids back to school. So I am going to ask one more question. And that question is, I also picked up I don't know if I want to call it a dissonance, but a rub between getting kids into the classroom and getting them comfortable and reacquainted, and a rub against starting that versus academics right away. So, or how those two work together, or, I don't want to jump right into academics right away. Like, have you given any thought to how that might play out?
Yeah, I'm gonna let our CAO jump in on that, because that really falls into the work that we're doing with principals and those kind of conversations. Ms. Martin, you want to add to that conversation?
Yes. So this has been a topic of conversation in our instructional core group. And I would say that we are really planning for the first 6 weeks, really focusing on rebuilding relationships, social emotional learning, implementing a curriculum, even if there is not a curriculum in place, thinking about culturally appropriate practices that can be put in place to re-engage students and staff for the first 6 weeks. And then thinking about what does that look like long term. It does not mean that instruction won't happen, but I would say that we are really focused on having really strong systems in place for re-engagement the first 6 weeks. And then after that, thinking about how do we continue that on a continual basis. So, 30 minutes every morning, are you having circles in your classroom? And so we're giving a lot of thought to this and going to be implementing a lot of best practices and strategies in our professional development. And we are also keeping assessment and standards at the forefront, because we know that that's also a concern for families as well. And so really going to spend the first couple of weeks, though, obviously just doing some foundational assessments of our students to see where our students are. So then we can better plan for how do we help them going forward? What is our intervention? What does our acceleration plan look like once we do our foundational assessments at the beginning of the school year? But really a strong focus the first 6 weeks on culture and climate.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I just want to say really quickly, and Mr. Gonzalez-Wood mentioned this earlier, we have a new system that's set up. Dr. Hurst and a group of folks, staff members, are meeting with board members prior to the meeting. They are literally setting aside hours to speak with us and answer any questions that we have. The purpose of that is for board members to be able to come into meetings better informed and for us to be able to move through our work more quickly. So I do respectfully ask that, since we did have the opportunity, and because we all got this presentation in advance, to be able to limit our questions to 4 per item, and also to try to limit commentary during question time, so we can be efficient and productive in our meeting and respect everyone's time. Mrs. Smith Folds?
So, Mr. Phillips, we got this presentation last night at 8:56. So that's the first thing. So this is a 36-slide presentation. So it is going to have probably more questions asked, to Trustee Reckler's point. To your point, and to the point of Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, we do have opportunities to talk to our superintendent because he has made himself incredibly available. With that in mind, there may be trustees who do have more questions, and this is a highly important topic. So that has to also be valued and kind of uplifted, along with the idea of making sure that you're utilizing the superintendent and all the time he's making available for us. With that being said, Dr. Hurst, I had on my lovely piece of paper that I sent 18 questions plus the other two. So 18, 19, 20, 21. I had a total of 21 questions. And I will not be asking all 21 of those questions because I have already sent those to the superintendent's office. I will have those 21 questions published on my Facebook page, and we will continue to have dialogue about them. One of the things that before my questions start, one of the things I find so productive is the fact that you are having other ways to getting this information out to the community. So first question, what is the specific criteria for being enrolled in the virtual school? I know that you talked about academic data. What is the other specific criteria for being enrolled in the virtual school? Maybe just what would the application look like? What questions would be on that?
So we'll let Ms. Martin speak about that.
So Trustee Folds, I will say that I can answer the academic side. And for kinder through second grade will not have an application process. So typically kinder through second grade, this is new. And so there will not be an application process and there will not be an assessment for kinder through second grade. For any other grades, there will be either an RI assessment, a STAR assessment, and a math assessment, a math diagnostic, for just determining the needs of the student, if in fact this is the appropriate placement. I do not know all the questions that Principal McCormick will have for families, but I will get them for you. But I know that she specifically asked families about their ability to work independently and their ability to determine if their child is ready for this level of independence, if there are any social emotional needs of the child, why they want virtual school. And so there's questions really around social emotional learning and just ability to manage independent study, because that's a big task, especially for a kindergarten student, if your parents may not be at home with you all the time or they're at work. And so she asked questions really to ensure that parents understand that this is independent. And although there are synchronous and asynchronous opportunities, a parent has to ensure that their child is getting online because they do have to manage attendance as well. So there is a 9 a.m. check-in every morning for students. So those are some of the questions. I don't have the exact questions, but I know exactly what she's looking for in the responses to determine if this is an appropriate placement for their child. However, it's an agreement between the parents. So it's not as though if you don't check all these boxes, you're not admitted. I think it's more of a collaborative conversation to just ensure that this is the right choice for the family. Thank you for that. The second question I have, we were talking about under virtual school that if you have a student who has an IEP, that IEP meeting needs to take place prior to enrollment into the virtual academy. The question I have is that we all are aware that in an IEP, you have to have certain people there, a classroom instructor, you have to have your school psychologist, you may have to have your caseworker, you may have to have these people there. If people are out during the summer and those specific criteria of those people who have to be on an IEP are not there, even an admin has to be at an IEP or an equivalent, what are we doing as a district to ensure that doesn't then hold up the process of a student with an IEP to apply for virtual school? That is an excellent question, and I will get back to you with the response as soon as possible, because I met with our SELPA director. However, I do not believe that we have a clear answer on how to form an IEP team during the summer if a parent chooses that option. And so I'll get an answer for you.
Thank you so much. That's perfect. And then the next question is, exactly how many students can virtual school accommodate currently?
Did you want me to answer?
Go ahead, ma'am.
75. 75 is the current number right now.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question. Dr. Hurst, I don't know if this is a facilities question. So my question is, have we done measurements in our cafeterias to then know exactly how many students it can accommodate at 3 feet?
I think that's a good question as well. I see that Mr. Freeze is on mic'd. So Mr. Freeze.
And Mr. Freeze, before you answer, I had that same question about a classroom. I'm gonna double that one in there. Classroom and the cafeterias.
Well, I think I have to back it up with what Dr. Hurst has said earlier about one for the classroom, where the 3 foot may not be attainable. In those cases, we are going back 100%. And so we will be putting those students in those classrooms. But in the cafeteria, we're looking at the one-sided use of the cafeteria tables. We are trying to figure out the capacities within the room. We know what the capacity are for students sitting according to the building code, but we're also looking at it realistic, what we have in there for seating and how many people we can put in each room.
Okay, so that's some information that you will bring back, exactly how many people can sit in a cafeteria at 3 feet. Is that what I was hearing, Dr. Hurst?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And my very last question is, when we're talking about contact tracing, have we?
Trustee Smith-Folds, I know you're probably going to ask the question anyway, but just so I'm saying the same thing to everybody, I do respectfully ask that board members do limit their questions to 4. This item will come back and everybody has the opportunity to ask questions offline of the superintendent as well. You've asked for, I will respectfully ask that you let us move on to the next trustee.
Thank you, President Phillips. I am going to ask this last question, but thank you so much. As it comes to contact tracing, have we included in this contact tracing the idea of, now that students are fully back in person, that they also carpool with each other? So I know that when we talked about contact tracing in the spring, we were talking about siblings, that siblings in the hubs. Now I just want to put it on the radar to also include the idea that there is carpooling. The students are taking buses, students are getting to school different ways now. So when we're talking about that contact tracing and asking those questions, who have you come in contact with? We want to make sure we also say, how do you get to school? Because we need to know who you're in contact with in that manner also. And that is all for now. Dr. Hurst, I will look forward to, and Ms. Martin, I will look forward to those other 20 answers. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Christian, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Hurst, for the presentation. And I have no questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Christian, I don't have any questions either. So, Dr. Hurst, thank you very much for your presentation. Ms. Martin, thank you for pitch hitting at times as well. We're going to move
President
on.
Phillips.
Oh,
sorry to interrupt you. Are we doing comments? I know some of us got them in there, but I definitely want to make a couple comments if it's okay with you.
You know what? You're right. Some of us were slipping the comments in there. We have not been commenting on the superintendent's report, and I would really hope that we kind of don't start doing that for reasons.
Okay. I'll keep, if you want, I'll keep my comments for the end. I'll just add them to my comments at the end of the night.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy. I very much appreciate that. We're going to move on to the next item, which is E1, increase the substitute rate of pay beginning in the 21-22 school year.
Good evening. So I am here to talk about the increase of the sub rate. I'm not sure if we can bring up the actual item so I can go over it. If not, I'll work to bring it up on my screen. there. Just give me a moment to get that. So for the last several years, while we're looking to find the actual item, we've only paid $130 a day for our substitutes to come in. And it's becoming a challenge to maintain subs. As we're coming out of the pandemic, we want to encourage having substitutes available every day, so we're not having to double up students in our regular teachers' classes, keeping the focus on instruction, lost learning, and pieces. So by moving the sub rate up to $190 a day there for day-to-day subs, we anticipate that that will keep more students focused with classroom teachers, keep our regular teachers focused with their students. In addition, we're going to create a brand new daily rate for teachers that work with special education students at the $225 a day to really focus on our highest need students, not ever finding a day where they're not having a qualified educator inside their classroom. We're also doing some investigation pre-pandemic at schools that had challenges maintaining subs on a regular basis. And for those, we're going to look at implementing site subs, where we have a sub at $200 a day that doesn't necessarily have an assignment that they know of in the morning, but they're there to support that site. So we always have another individual to take care of instruction. We would then also recommend increasing the long-term rates for both the special education and the day-to-day when we have teachers that go out on leave for periods of time due to maternity and other issues. The total cost of this, we anticipate, will be about $1.245 million, $1.25 million. We will be working to mitigate some of our focus that we will try to utilize subs really for when teachers are out for leave and try to avoid doing, to the best of our ability, professional development during the school day and use Zoom and other opportunities right after for our teachers. That doesn't take away those that are new teachers and have mentor teachers that need to do the required monitoring. That will continue. But we're recommending that the board approve this increase so we can start marketing this and recruiting qualified subs to be there. In addition to, we continue to hire more and more teachers to lower those class sizes. But we'll be glad to answer any questions, and we're really excited to be able to make this happen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wold. Does that conclude the presentation?
That does.
Okay. Board, just a quick reminder, please limit it to 4, and please, during questions, just ask questions. We're going to have a comment period, so you can make your comments then. For now, please just ask questions. Mr. Gonzalez-Way.
Thank you, Dr. Wold and Ms. Williams for your work on this. I don't have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Reckler.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Smith-Folds.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Christian.
No, I have any questions.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any questions either. Can I have a motion to approve this item, please?
I'll make a motion. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Trustee
No, go
Christian.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to move this item.
Moved by Gonzalez. Christian.
Second.
Seconded by Christian. Any discussion, board? Okay, I see Smith-Folds. Is there anyone else? I see 2 people. Okay, so we'll start in order. Mr. Gonzalez-Way.
Thank you, President Phillips. Yes, I'm really excited about this. I think that this is one of the things that we constantly hear when we go to sites, our lack of subs. I know Ms. Williams hears about this probably on an everyday basis during the school year. So I'm really glad we're taking this step. I do think that this is going to make us a little more competitive. I think that this is something we need to revisit almost every year, because I know that other districts are taking this initiative too. But I think that as soon as we do this, our communications team, I know they're doing a lot, but if we can like push this out, I do think that we need to let people know that this is something that it's important to us, so that we can attract subs to our district. So some type of, I don't know, social media push, or Ms. Williams, you probably already have something in mind, but I'd appreciate that so that we can steal some subs from our neighboring districts. Maybe use Ms. Martin to steal some from Oakland, and we can build a bigger pool. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Mrs. Reckler.
I just hope it's helpful and, we fill spots and hopefully we take subs and turn them into teachers. So hopefully it's a runway into a profession. That's it. It's also budgeted. Just want everybody to know it's budgeted. Thank you.
Mrs. Smith Folds.
I think that pay is one of the pieces of this puzzle. I think that this will solve one portion. I think that we want to make sure that we look at the other parts of why we don't have a lot of subs, what we need to do to retain the subs that we do have, and to make sure that we're including the subs when we're having things like training, our long-term subs, when we have things like training, to make sure that they understand that they are vital to our system. Substitutes are vital to our system to help not only keep the day going when teachers have other things that they need to do, like professional development, et cetera, but they also vital to our system, because it then allows those teachers not to have to double up and triple up and add people to the classroom. That's especially vital when we're going back and we are still in COVID. So I want to make sure that this is a good step. Dr. Hurst, I really appreciate this step, but we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to our substitutes. Thank you.
Mr. Christian.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hurst. I mean, not Hurst, but yeah, Dr. Hurst, Tony Wall. But yeah, this is a good direction. And yes, that's it.
Ditto. All right. That said, the motion that's on the floor is to approve this item. Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy, will you please start the vote?
Yes, thank you. Gonzalez, so yes.
Reckler, yes.
Smith Folds, yes.
Christian, yes.
Phillips, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. We are now going to move on to item E2, which is Williams lawsuit complaints quarterly report.
Yes, Mr. Jordan's pulling the item up for us. So tonight we'd like to report for the fourth quarter of 2021. We have 0 complaints for textbooks, materials, teacher vacancies, facilities conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Freeze. Board, do we want to technical issues solved? All right. Board, any questions, starting with Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Reckler?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Smith Folds?
No questions on this item.
Mr. Christian?
No question.
No questions for me either. Can I have a motion to accept this report?
I'll
So
move. Trustee Christian beat us all. I heard of it.
Moved by Christian. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Gonzalez-Hoy. Any discussion, board? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy, will you please kick it off?
Yes, Gonzalez, so yes.
Reckler, yes.
Smith Folds, yes.
Christian, yes.
Phillips? Yes. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to take up the one item that was on consent that was pulled. And I don't have the number or the specific, it was in C2, but it was the Cal State East Bay contract. And that was pulled by Mrs. Smith Folds. So Mrs. Smith Folds, you can ask the questions that you have.
So Dr. Hurst, the reason I pulled this is because I had a couple of questions. If you look at the Appendix C said the contact person for this is Mr. Whittemore. He's no longer here. So and it says this was back in October 2018. So this, I'm trying to figure out, was the contract made in 2018 when Whittemore was here, and now it's now getting utilized, or someone walk me through why it says 2018 at the bottom and it hasn't. I'm not sure. Do we have a John Alamin in working for us any longer?
That
Okay.
would have been me, and Ken Whittemore obviously would have been HR. I can actually answer to help out. This is a residency program grant with Cal State East Bay to support some beginning special education teachers. We have 14 that are still in the cohort. It was started by the predecessors of my position and Miss Williams' position. So the original contract stays with their name, even though it continues under us. In Miss Hardy's office, Rachel is the overseer of these 14, and this is just a continuing residency as they move towards getting their full credentials.
Okay, so the reason it has former employees' name on it is because they were here during the original contract, but everyone is very much aware who the contact person is now. People aren't calling Mr. Whittemore for this and he's no longer with the district. That's what we're saying, correct, Dr.
Correct.
Cole? Okay.
Correct.
That literally was, and this program started in 2018 and it's just continuing now because it's helping them through their entire credentialing program for special ed. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you for that clarification.
Mrs. Smith-Post, do you want to move the item?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I forgot. Did any other board members have questions? I'm sorry. I was rude. Okay. Mrs. Smith-Post, now please, if you can. I apologize.
I would like to move this item. Do I need to name it?
Let's just say East Bay, Cal State East Bay contract.
I would like to move the Cal State East Bay contract, please, for approval.
Second that.
Thank you. It was moved by moved by Smith-Folds and seconded by Gonzalez-Foy. Board, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Gonzalez-Foy.
Gonzalez, so yes.
Trustee Smith-Folds, excellent catch. Reckler, yes.
Thank you. Smith-Folds, yes.
And Christian, yes.
Phillips, yes. The item passes, and I think we're on to the main event for this evening, which is item F1, first reading, charter school policies AR, BP, and E0420.
So this is an item that I'm carrying, but I might as well start by saying that this has really been a lot of work by Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy and Trustee Reckler. We spent many hours reading every single word that was crossed out and discussing why those words were crossed out or added in there. And so I'm going to go fairly quickly through the substance of it and leave the finale to both of the trustees, who I think have a strong understanding of this, probably better than I even do as we go through. But I'm going to go ahead and bring up the deck and walk through it. There was a change that was put in this morning as it pertains to something the governor signed. So I want to walk through that as well for the public. If you downloaded this early, you would not have seen this change. So give me just half a moment to bring up my screen and the presentation, and then here we go. Give me just one moment to make it a slideshow. And there we go. All right, so this is our role. So what we're going to talk about briefly is how we review charters through the district, the role of the district charter office, an outline of the updated process and alignment to Assembly Bill 1505 and changes in charter law, some overview of the key recommended changes in our board policy, and then our next steps and the charter manual that we've been working on as we go forward. So to start understanding charters, you really need to go back to 1992. And Senator Gary Hart was the real pioneer in charters. And when he brought forward the law, he really had a vision that charters were supposed to be laboratories. They were supposed to be innovative opportunities to find ways to bring back best practices to public education. The original law that he crafted would have capped the number of charters at 100 and would have made it that no single school district could have more than 10. In 1998, the legislature raised the limit to 250 and then allowed an additional 100 each year afterwards. The goal, again, was that innovation could come without the layers of compliance that comes from the state there. And it was also really couched to stop what was a big movement at that time for vouchers to allow the public to use taxpayer money to go and pay for private and parochial schools. So the charter was a compromise from the voucher. Ultimately, that voucher did come to the electorate and lost 70% to 30, just to give kind of a context of the history there. AB 1505, a couple of years ago, was crafted to address some of the changes that had occurred since the original legislation, where charters had become a little more rampant than was anticipated. So this is the change that was not there if you went to sleep last night. The state adopted budget bill signed by the governor yesterday really made a couple changes in charter renewals. The biggest change that impacts us and impacts every charter is a recognition that there has not been quantifiable data. So as it pertains to renewals, all charter schools are now having 2 years added to their renewals. And when you're looking at the performance level, you can, however, look back in your renewal decision to the 2 years previously. If a charter was not being successful and there's reason to mitigate, then authorizers still have that ability to do so, but it does state that the renewal process will be moved forward for all charters that have a renewal date between January 1, 2022 and June 30th, 2025, will be 2 years added to the term. And so you'll see that on the next slide. Also important, though, is that the current moratorium on new non-classroom-based charter schools has been extended for 3 more years. So you will not be seeing charters creating virtual schools in any way as we go forward. And all of the pieces in our recommendations that came out of the committee still stand, even with this change in law. So we had this beautiful chart with things highlighted in yellow. We were anticipating that we would be doing 2 renewals this year, Richmond Charter Academy and Leadership Public Schools. So you can see now that both of those have the 23 in place there, and you can see all the changes have been moved out 2 years to reflect the new 2-year state extension as we go. So what that does mean for us, and we'll talk about it in next steps, is it allows us to really focus on our oversight activities and not have to be completely consumed with renewals in the first year of this new policy. So in a sense, there is some opportunity in every change that is made. These are the schools that are not directly related to the district, but within our boundaries. And there's the one that would have been on our radar to look for any material changes, would have been making waves, that now moves to 24 as we go forward. So the role of the charter office, it really does start with compliance. And our job is to make sure and understand that any approval of a charter or any MOU with the charter is essentially a contract between the authorizing agency, which is the district, which is the school board and the charter school. And anytime you authorize something, we need to ensure that the charter school is living up to that contract and meeting those goals. So that becomes the responsibility of district staff on behalf of the board that's the authorizer. And then oversight begins with fiscal practices, making sure that they're following the appropriate accountability and accounting principles, making sure that we're monitoring that their educational programs, attendance, human resources, and all financial aspects are following the rules, and that our strong oversight is essential for pupil performance and other compliance. So we focus on it, but it isn't one person. In the past, we had one person that did all of this. Looking at a charter school is just like running a district office. Everyone has a role. So in the district operations side, the charter school financial coordinator has the fiscal oversight, compliance, the coordination of any review, data collection, maintaining all of the two-way communication, and all of the legal connections. That's the responsibility of the position dedicated to it. In Ms. Hardy's division, special education, they will continue to review and assess the program delivery and access and the effectiveness of their special needs programs, making sure that all special needs students are served. Our English learner department will continue to ensure that reclassification is done. We'll gather the data and provide it to them, but they'll make sure that that's following EL instruction is meeting the requirements. Human resources is charged under AB 1505 to access and review the credentials of all teachers and monitor their staff retention rates. Curriculum instruction need to be looking at the A through G, the entire core program. Student services has to focus on discipline, school climate, their enrollment practice, making sure that their systems are equitable and that they are taking all students, not choosing and filtering. And then facilities has the Proposition 39 utilization should they request facilities to go through that process. So you can see this is a large scale collaboration that's very important. And we brought and trained all of these folks as part of the work with the charter committee. So AB 1505 really made a couple big changes. The first thing is they went to a 3-tiered system in the statewide dashboard. And that sort of defined the renewal terms. A high-performing charter is going to be a 5 to 7-year term. A middle performing is a 5-year term. A low is a 0 to 2, meaning that you can say, no, they are not likely to continue, or you can give them conditions to go forward, depending on circumstance. And the reasons for denial are community interest, that it's demonstrably unlikely to be able to serve the students that it's supposed to serve, the interests of the students in the community where it's located, or fiscal impact on the school district, where it could take the school district to a negative qualification. So our charter committee, again with trustees Gonzalez, Hoy, and Reckler, held multiple meetings. As part of those meetings, we also had our district's legal firm, Lozano Smith, present to do presentations and review all the pieces. We brought in charter experts as well to do trainings on the best practices. We reviewed each of the policies and they all went under legal review. We also reviewed data collection and reporting to make recommendations for how a handbook might be generated. So the 4 areas that we have policies are for authorizing new charters, our oversight work, renewal, and revocation. And so in the overview, what we did do is some basic cleanup. We removed notes. When CSBA, California School Boards Association, creates sample policies, they put notes for all of the districts to look at. Sometimes when you're doing a policy, you forget to take those notes out and it really isn't relevant. So we cleaned them up to make sure that they read appropriate. We made sure they aligned to all the current laws. as it pertains to authorizing, renewing, and denying. We made sure that there's now an annual written report to the board so that we're getting something from each charter on how they're doing. We added language to be very specific about how a material revision can be submitted, that it needs to be part of the petition or the renewal. It can't just be, oh, after the fact, you just renewed and now they try that. We added language that really talked about how issues will be remediated before so, and then some general language cleanup. Then what we put together is really different areas there that talked about how charters will operate. So in the authorization, we just focused on operating under the laws. We discussed the criteria that is used by staff, making sure it's consistent with the Charter Schools Act. We talked about all of the information that is necessary to be in a petition. It's all listed in there, so it's very clear, and emphasize the community interest analysis that's going to be used as part of our criteria in reviewing. This is a very important overarching element in all of this work. It's focused on the students that are being served, that their needs are being met in all levels. Continuing through, what happened there? Sorry, there we go. As we continue in there, we focused on academic students' needs. We added requirements, again, the annual report. We described language there as we go for special education. And so these are the added requirements. Whenever they're coming to us, they need to have consulted with our SELPA director to ensure that they're going to be compliant with special needs students. There needs to be a provision that they're not turning away eligible students due to disability or their inability to provide services. It needs to have comprehensive review and explanation of their special education services. And then we need to fully understand that they have recognized the effects of school calendar, transportation, and all of the different services for English learners that are required. So continuing through on the oversight, again, back to material revisions, making sure that that's clear. There is codified that staff will be making an annual visit to each charter school that we oversee, physically present, making sure that we're looking over those that are in our boundaries. And then we also ensured that they are following all of the local educational agency rules that we are, including the Brown Act, and more importantly, the California Public Records Act, that when the public asks for information, they have a right to know that. As we go forward, we talked about all of their signed certifications needing to be there. Again, back to the material revisions, focusing on the descriptions of how they will remediate any challenges. We replaced the list of granting or denying renewals with a very specific table. We also have language that gives the board the ability to determine the term of the charter renewal and outline conditions where a charter may be eligible for the 5-year, but the board believes that there's additional oversight. The board has that parameter to create that direction as part of this policy. And then we also describe the factors that would result in denial and what those would be and how they would be assessed so everyone's clear. As we continue to focus, the areas that were important are their governance performance, their track record for academic performance, equity and access for families and pupils. This is an overarching theme throughout all of the policies. Focus on school culture. Financial is always going to be there. The soundness of the program. And again, is the school likely to successfully implement what they say they're going to do as we go forward? Denial factors goes back to defining what is demonstrably unlikely to succeed and what those factors are, and defining how they may not be serving the students who wish to be able to attend there, and that what evidence the district would provide to show the charter that they're out of compliance. We also talked about the timeline. Anytime the district is potentially going to recommend or move towards a denial, the charter does have needs to have proper notice so that they have the opportunity to cure the violation beforehand. And so that requires 30-day notice that that corrective action has been given to them, and that they have sufficient time to be able to cure it. But if there are severe or persuasive actions, we do have the ability to move towards denial. With all of that, we're going to recommend in August that the board approve all of these. And what I didn't say is there's links within the PowerPoint to every one of those so that you can go and see the actual red lines. They're all attached in the agenda as well, as is the charter school manual for oversight. We're going to spend the rest of this summer and continuing next year to collect data, build up the website, make information more accessible to the public. With that, I'm going to pass it real quickly. If I missed anything in this, because we were trying to go quick but be thorough, to Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, who's the chair, if there's anything that you wanted to add before we move it around to the questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wold, and thank you, President Phillips, for letting me speak a little bit here. I just want to start by saying thank you, because it's been a lot of work with Dr. Wold and our legal team and Ms. Felly and her team. We honestly rushed quite a bit to make sure that we could get to this point. We worked on this for 5 months, and we did it because we had renewals coming up this year, and we wanted to make sure that we had everything up to date. With the trailer bill that was signed yesterday, I guess it kind of could have given us more time, but in a way, I'm glad because we got it done. And to be honest with all of you, the reason why I'm proud is because I think that this policy could become an example to the state of California. There's been very few districts that have gone into this detail to look at their policy updated to current laws, and making sure that they are setting structure for oversight and do it well. So we did look at the ones that have done it. And honestly, I believe that we improved it with the language that Dr. Wold and his team added. And there's really LA and San Diego are the only ones that have really updated to this point, and now us. And I've already gotten contacted by CSBA and a couple other organizations about what did you all do to update your policy to this point. So that makes me feel really proud of the work that we did, all of us together, because I even got input from many of you at times through Dr. Wold on the language, and it was tedious. Trustee Reckler and I attended about 5 trainings with different organizations to make sure that we knew what we're doing. We reviewed over 14 policies from throughout the state, which, as you all know, I mean, Trustee Phillips is a lawyer, so you go through this quite a bit. But for someone who doesn't read the detail of policies often, it was hard work. But I do think this is going to make us stronger as an organization, and use the tools that we learned through the oversight of charters to also learn about oversight in our own schools, which I think is what makes this policy so strong, because as Dr. Wold said, we're transitioning from a one-person team to a large group of people who are going to be doing the oversight. And I think that's going to allow us to also become stronger as a full system. And with the trailer bill now, as Dr. Wold said, we can concentrate on the oversight this year and make that strong and data wise, because we have been lacking on that in that area for a while, to getting accurate data and sharing that and being transparent with community. So I think that's what excites me about the policy. Of course, we can always do everything better. So if there are any suggestions from all of you on how we can make it strong before the next reading, or before we vote on this on the 4th, I welcome it. But I do want you to know that I want to appreciate Trustee Reckler, especially because she did put quite a bit of work on reading this, and Dr. Wold and his team, because it was hours and hours, months of work to make our charter oversight efficient. That's it. Thank you, Dr. Wold and President Phillips.
Thank you very much. You're kicking it off tonight. I don't know if you're going to ask yourself questions. Uh, Reckler, what was you're next? Um, Smith Folds.
Don't worry, guys. I got you. I have a couple of questions. So when you're talking about oversight, Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, do we have staff that attend their board meetings or not their board meetings or their community meetings? How do we have that dual communication happen?
Great question. I'll actually pass it on to Dr. Wold because I know that's something he was working on with Ms. Cefeli. But I can tell you that I think it's one of the practices that we want to start instituting is being a little bit more collaborative with the charters in that way. And also with collaboration comes accountability, right? But I'll pass it on to Dr. Wold.
Correct. So we actually did have a long discussion about whether the board should appoint somebody to the different boards. And talking with legal, it creates a potential conflict of interest that we didn't want to go to. We do now require them with the Brown Act to have all of the open meeting pieces. And so we also will be monitoring that minutes are created. And when necessary, when agendas are produced, if there's something that we believe is of interest that we need to be present, we'll make sure that we are. We at this point are not assigning someone directly to them, but we are making sure that that is communicated and connected. In addition, I neglected to say, starting in July of last year, we have met monthly with all charters, including the ones that are not ours. We have a monthly Zoom and we're running at about 90% attendance beyond just the 8 that we oversee. And so we communicate both ways. I chair those meetings so that we are having ongoing communication. I had a charter call me today about a student enrollee that had a foster issue, and we connected them with Mr. Franco, and we're getting them enrolled in one of our schools today because we have focus on student needs. So it's already starting to pay dividends in the communications.
So along that same line, the 8 charter schools that this district oversees, do they have access to like a uniform complaint or some kind of form and say, hey, something's going on at our school? Do they have a way and a process of bringing that forward to us?
Yes,
Okay.
They do.
Okay. And then the third question is, what's the limit of the authority that this district has? So let's say you go to a charter site, you see something wrong. The limit of your authority is just to take notes on it, or is the limit of your authority go past that and then you make recommendations or suggestions? What's the limit of the authority?
It's going to depend on what the issue is, what action we would take. We have in the past issued direction memos. We have issued sanctions with cure and corrects. So there are processes that we can take. If something is brought to our attention or we observe it, we work with legal counsel to make sure that we follow that appropriate process. So again, without a specific incident or specific thing, I don't want to make a general statement, but there are processes in place. Okay. Yes.
And then the last question I have is, when we're talking about the eight campuses or the 8 charters that we oversee, we know some are co-located. Are they following the same, and Dr. Hurst, I guess this would be for you if you don't mind, are they following the same fall reopening protocols that our schools are following as oversight? For example, are they following the same distancing requirements and the same masking requirements? Have we seen their fall reopening plans if they co-locate on the district site?
So the co-located charters have in their Prop 39 a requirement to work with us. We actually removed the 2 big co-locating charters, which were Invictus and Voices, have moved away now. Voices has found their own permanent home down the street from Dijon, and Invictus is at the site that Michelle Obama is using as a temporary campus. But yes, if they were co-located, they have to follow ours as part of their Prop 39. This year, they all were pretty parallel to us the entire COVID time because we met with them the whole way through. They don't have to be, they do have to follow CDPH guidelines like every other school. And they've been pretty open to wanting to be partners and not get too far away from us.
And so, Dr. Hurst, we've already had those conversations with those co-located campuses about fall reopening, or we're having those conversations with the co-located campuses. Is that accurate?
We will have those conversations. We
Okay.
have not yet.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Those are the questions.
Yes.
Mr. Christian, do you have any questions, sir?
No questions.
I don't have any questions either. We are now in the comment discussion period. So if you do have suggestions regarding this policy, now would be the time to share it in a public forum. I'm just going to say, Mr. Gonzalez-Hoy, you start with.
Yeah, thank you, President Phillips. The only thing that I would add is that we did kind of to Trustee Smith-Folt's question about appointing someone to their board. We did put that one. We held off on making a decision on that piece, and we didn't put it into the policy because of what Dr. Wold said. We could take on that question, and there is differing opinions on that piece depending on what legal firm or from throughout the state you ask. So if that's a question that we wanted to take or even add to this policy, we can. We made the decision that it was better for us to concentrate on the oversight for now, and then we would take it on later as a committee. Obviously, if we don't have committees, we'll have to decide how we're going to take that on. But I did want to make it clear that we didn't really make a decision on that. We just said we wanted to wait so that we could finalize all the other pieces on this first. So I just wanted to clarify that too, because I didn't really answer your question, Trustee Smith-Foltz. But that is my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, good sir. Mrs. Reckler.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say nice summary. That was great. I was dreading actually how that was going to go because it was so complicated. So I just wanted to say thank you for the summary. I also want to thank Ed and Jessica from Lozana Smith for all of their help and their education. I want to thank members of the public who sent in the most thoughtful, interesting, like just really great public comment and emails in to me while I was doing this. So I thank you for that. Really expanded my thinking. I want to thank Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy. this was a lot. It was good though. I learned so much. I mean, it was a good long experience. Dr. Wold, Ms. Savelli, I want to thank you. Ms. Savelli, you're not here, but thank you for your work on it. And then you answered all my questions on the trailer bill, which I was afraid was going to happen, but at least we're really far ahead now. And then the only other thing, yeah, I agree about putting people on the boards. I think we should hold on that. I definitely have a point of view on that. I'm not in favor of it. I just got too many concerns about that, but I would be willing to look at it again. And that's it. I'm glad it's here tonight for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Smith-Foltz.
I think for me, one of the things is I don't want this trailer bill kind of extension to think that, okay, now everybody can just take a breath. There still has to be accountability. There's still check marks that have to happen. There's still data that needs to be collected. There's still things that are still processes that need to be established and kept going through this time, because what we don't want is to not do the due diligence to serve the students. And that means that oversight has to be a continual process. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy and Trustee Reckler, thank you for your hard work. I did enjoy listening to the charter committee, charter committee committees. I did enjoy listening to the committee meetings that you guys had. I did learn a lot from that. Dr. Hurst, again, I think my only thing is I want to make sure that we don't waste this time and we don't misuse this time, but we take this time to center all students that go to all schools, and especially the ones that we have oversight with, and make sure that they are being served to the best capacity that they can be served. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Christian, do you have any comments?
Yeah, only thing I just Thank Trustee Reckler and Trustee Gonzalez Hoy for a good job on, and Dr. Tony Wall. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Christian. First thing I want to say is this is the first read that I've been waiting for on the board policy since I've been on the board. Like, I really got something out of this. So I want to say, good presentation, Dr. Wall. The second thing that I want to say to Mr. Gonzalez Hoy, I want to thank you very much for taking this work on. I know that this was something new, and I know that it was something different, but you were open and you understood the importance of this work and you dove right into it. And Trustee Reckler was right along there with you. And you guys really did a Herculean effort. You made sure that you educated yourselves. You made sure that you brought, subject matter experts in. You did a yeoman's job. And so I just want to say thank you to both of you very much because, in my humble opinion, we haven't really been doing charter oversight. Like Dr. Wall said, we only had one person, with all of those schools. How can one person do that? Right. And so we had a very, in my opinion, reactionary process. We would, kind of jump out there and do a gotcha on somebody, and then we're doing charter oversight. But this, what you guys have worked on, is really professionalizing our office, and that's going to be good for the kids who are in the charter schools, but it's also going to be good for us as well, for multiple reasons. Charters in our district, for obvious reasons, have become a highly political and charged topic. And I believe with the work that you guys have led, that a lot of that should die down as things are standardized. And this is the way we do it, and people know this is how we do it. That will allow the board to spend more time, not on these, really hot political issues, but more time on teaching and learning in our district. So it will help us shift our focus really to where it's supposed to be. So I want to thank both of you for doing this work. It is extremely important and vital. Also want to thank the staff because I know you guys didn't do it alone. And so those are all of my comments. Really, it's just a big thank you. I really appreciate the time that you have all spent on this. With that, we're gonna go. That's it. So we are now on item G, which is comments from the Board of Education and future agenda items. So Mr. Gonzalez Hoy.
Thank you, President Phillips, and thank you for your comments. I do appreciate it. So first comment, I just want to thank everybody who is working summer school. I know a lot of people decided to work summer school out of love of our schools and kids because of loss of learning or for whatever other reason. So I just want to say thank you to our teachers, our classified staff, our principals, because they're gonna, especially our principals, are gonna get like 2 weeks of break after summer school. So I'm just really thankful for them, our directors, everybody who supported summer school, because I know that it's been really rich. I've been seeing pictures online, and some schools have done just an incredible job. So thank you, and good luck tomorrow on the last day of school. I am now starting monthly listening sessions. I learned that from Trustee Smith-Foltz, who's been holding in for 6 months. So I held my first one for Area 4 this month. It was great. I had a low attendance because it's summer, but a lot of the questions that I'm going to be asking on Friday when I meet with staff about the fall reopening came from there. So I just want to thank people in my area who came to my listening session. I'm going to be doing it now as our board meetings are dying down, I'm gonna be able to have a little more time to do a little bit more listening. So I appreciate that. And I'll continue to put it on social media. I do think that we need to revisit our public comment at the next retreat. I would like to request that just to have a conversation on where everybody feels. I haven't been able to touch base with most of you or majority of you, of course, but we are hearing from a lot of community. It was a big topic in my listening session, just around the way that we're doing public comment. So I would just like to revisit it so that we can all come to an agreement whether this is working or we want to try something different or we want to go back to the way that we're doing it. So I would like to request that for the retreat whenever that gets scheduled. I do think that for going back to Superintendent Hurst, Dr. Hurst, your presentation about the fall reopening, and Ms. Martin, thank you so much for adding information to that. I do have a huge interest in the social emotional piece, right, of the beginning of the year. I've talked to you both about our lack of social emotional curriculum in our district. I always give the example of my wife this summer asking me to spend a few $100s on a social emotional curriculum herself, which shouldn't be, and I'm using it as an example of what happens throughout our district, and it shouldn't be that way, right? We should provide the tools to our teachers and our staff to be successful, especially if it's our focus, right? So I appreciated Ms. Martin's response to that piece, and I just look forward to seeing what tools are provided to schools, and what comes out on the 19th there. I do have more questions about the independent study section and our virtual school. I did see in the trailer bill, or at least the explanation from the governor's office, that the virtual schools do, because so many districts are moving in that direction for next year, they do work towards the independent study piece. But I do think that there are some differences. And when we had the presentation about the virtual school a few months ago, Ms. McCormick specifically called out the differences, which is, virtual school is a long-term idea for students who want that option. And I think that there are people looking for a short-term option as well, because they can't come back in person, right? So I still am looking for clarity there, and how people can get access to that independent study option. If it's part of virtual, how are they going to be designated differently? How are they going to be supported differently? I'm still really curious about that. And with that extent, I have heard that families don't know anything about the virtual school. So I'm really excited to see that there's going to be a night of information coming out, because I do think there are a lot of people interested in enrolling, and they just don't know how to access the information or how to even enroll and transfer. But I do think that we need to have clarity on the options within the virtual school, if that makes sense. And then the whole situation about the application process, I do want to say that it makes me a little uncomfortable leaving the charter conversation, to have an application process. I totally get it. We have to ask questions because it is a different type of school. But I definitely don't want to hear that a family member felt like they couldn't participate because of questions, right? Because we've heard of issues in charter schools where parents feel like they can't participate because of the application process, because of the questions, or they even get discouraged through that process, right? So I am concerned about that. I just want to call it out, but I trust you both that that's not going to be the case. But I do want us to think through that, that specific piece as people apply, as students and families apply to the school, because I don't want us to have the same issues that charter schools go through in our own system, which I know won't happen, but I just wanted to call it out. And then lastly, I just want to thank Dr. Hurst. I know you've been working so hard. I feel like you've been in the job now for a whole year, and it's really been a few weeks. And I just want to let the public know that sometimes Dr. Hurst calls me at 11 p.m. at night to give me an update or tell me something. And I'm just so proud of the work that you're doing already. So, continue working so hard. Really appreciate you and your staff, your cabinet, for everything that's happening. I feel like the board has been able to let go of the reins quite a bit because we trust your leadership. So I just wanted to end there. I apologize to all of you, my colleagues, because I took longer, but I appreciate the work everybody's doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Reckler?
Thank you. So I want to start with sending all my thoughts and love, and I'm keeping the family of Tyler Dixon in my heart. He's a recent El Cerrito High School graduate. He was actually in my son's class, and he was murdered on a camping trip. So I don't know what you say about that, but I'm hoping this family finds justice, and I'm praying that you find peace. I want to thank everyone for working summer school, and I'm hoping everybody gets some rest before we get back into it again. I have a couple of other comments, which are, if school schedules are changing, both start times and ending times, that needs to go out to families immediately, so that they have time to prepare and can, if they're working and stuff like that or whatever. So call principals back from the dead and send out emails to families. That's really important that people know. And I don't think we can wait much longer on that. So I'd like to see that pushed through. Another thing that occurred to me is that if we are using isolation rooms still, and the laws and the guidance seems to change every day, but if we are going to use isolation rooms, I would like to suggest that we call them waiting rooms instead of isolation rooms. So maybe we could just soften up the language around that. Just a suggestion. Then the other things I have are on August 4th, if we're ready, I'd like to have a presentation on the full breakdown of the governor's budget. There's a lot in there, just money-wise and programs-wise, and I think that would be very good to know if we would be ready on August 4th. And I'd also like fall reopening to come back and have that be almost, like the budget, and fall reopening be the next meeting, with lots of time for questions, because this is huge, and you heard that from all of us. I'd also like to thank President Phillips for the charter committee assignment. I had a really good time and I learned a lot, and I worked really hard. It was good. It was really good. I mean, it was a great assignment. So thank you. Yeah, there are certainly some other things that could go or not go in the policy, but I'm very comfortable with where it is. And also wanted to let trustees Jamila Smith know, it's late. Trustee Smith-Foltz know that, I have no intention of letting up on oversight, but we had planned this so carefully because we had petitions coming in the fall. And so, the governor blew up our master plan, but that's fine. It's okay. Finally, and then I just want to talk about the board meetings and questions. And, there is a balance between transparency and efficiency. And I'm not sure what that balance is, but it's something perhaps that we could discuss at the next retreat, so that we're all bought into the system of how to ask questions and how many. Because, I think it's a partnership on what we ask and how many. And then I as well will send in all my reopening questions and then put them on my Facebook page. So thank you, other trustees, for that. I will make that happen. And I think that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Smith-Foltz.
So I want to say that the contract catch, I said thank you for it, but it actually came to me from a community member. So I wanted to make sure that I say thank you, that catch came to me from a community member. I think that's why it's so important that we have relationships with the community and we involve them more, and we make sure that we have the space for them to be able to talk to us as the board, but be able to talk to the district and to be able to talk to each other. We're all in areas, so we need to have that space. Which leads me to one way to include the community more is to continue to refine our public comment. I do not want the community to feel that they have no space with us or with each other across the district. We're not only serving our areas up here, but we're serving the entire district. So we have to be able to make our areas not only feel heard, but every person in the district feel like they are being heard. So it's great that Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy and I are having our area meetings, but we need to make sure that we create a space for everybody to come and be able to share their thoughts, feelings, concerns, and comments. And that space should be here at this board meeting twice a month. When talking about fall reopening, we must talk about who monitors, who corrects, and who provides the consequences. So we have these policies, but we also need to make sure we're talking about the who behind the policies. We also need to know what are suggestions and then what are mandates, because we have 50+ schools. There has to be some standardization across the district while maintaining autonomy at sites. The written comment that I have is, I come here every other week and take the opportunity to talk about change. People keep asking, when am I going to talk about something different? When am I going to move on? Well, that answer is simple: when change has occurred. Change needs to be a habit of the mind and the soul, policy and procedures. It's human nature to remain comfortable. We have to push past comfortability. We have to collectively work towards the highest part of who we are. Sadly, in positions of leadership, we are rewarded and sometimes applauded for being mediocre. The future of all marginalized students is linked without a break to a system that was not created for them. We have to continue to understand and speak on that fact. If you are tired of hearing it, imagine how tired I am of saying it and how tired a whole group of students, teachers, admin, and parents are of experiencing it. This system works for some and not for others. Cosmetic changes and dismantling behaviors are possible only when people have the moral strength to ask, face, and answer the question, why does this system not work for everyone? We need to be honest. My words of dismantling the education system and forcing changes offends you only if you are a beneficiary of keeping the system the same. If you or your child benefit from the system, but you understand the vast majority of our district students do not, I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to those who benefit from the system and do not understand or recognize that other students do not. Here it is. If you want me to be quiet, help fix the broken system. Together, we must create and maintain a highly equitable learning environment for all students. The people who we serve must hold this board accountable for the policy we create and the value we put on change. For my future agenda items, I want to talk about transportation in the district. For the future agenda items, I want us to have a retreat that speaks directly to inequitable policies. I want to have a retreat that speaks directly to how we create and maintain and function as a board. That's looking at our bylaws, that's having conversations about how our meetings are run. We have to clean up this part of our house, the board house. We have to clean this up so we can allow everything else to function correctly. If we are not, as a board, strong with our policies, our practice, and our procedures, we cannot expect the district to do its job. We are the problem. So I am asking for a retreat so we can clean up our own house on the board. Thank you.
Mr. Christian?
Yes, thank you, thank you. I want to first thank Dr. Hurst and all the staff who diligently work hard throughout the day, and especially being here tonight. Also, I want to look at, our classified staff and our teachers. And then I want to say is that we have to learn how to appreciate all of our staff. And I want to also give a round of applause to a lot of the cafeteria workers who have worked diligently and hard throughout this pandemic. And they make boxes and put food and pass it out to the people of the community. They tired, but they have worked very hard. But also along with them, you have the CSOs, the campus safety officers who work to keep orderly fashion. And they work diligently and hard on every Thursday. and they've been working in this capacity since we've been in the pandemic. So I want to give a round of applause to all of them because they diligently did a lot. And if I had, to do something special, have something for them, they did it. They brought us through. And so we congratulate them, and we thank them for their hard work. Also, I want to say is that we got to continue to build and grow. And as a district, we got a lot of work to do. And also in the process, as we look at rebuilding Kennedy High School, Richmond, and Stage, there's a lot that has to be done, but we're moving in the right direction. Also, I want to congratulate the class of 2021 to all those graduates who made it. And we got some graduates who are going to be graduating on tomorrow at Richmond High School. And congratulations to all the students and also to the teachers and to all those who have worked hard to help our students to cross over. And also I want to say, what Trustee Reckler had mentioned in the beginning about Tyler Dixon, this young man, I knew very well. He was a student at El Cerrito High School where I served, where I worked hard throughout my years there at El Cerrito High School. And I got a chance to meet so many young people, and so many of people have went to the next level, but it breaks my heart to see we losing our young people. And Tyler Dixon, I seen that young man from the 9th grade to the 12th. He was a football player. He played basketball, and he had a heart to serve. I mean, he had a heart, and his heart was there. And he never got in any trouble. But I watched over so many students, and I tell you, this young man, he had it going on. As we move towards the fall, and like I said, we have a lot of work to do. We got to stay focused. We got to keep pushing forward. Yes, change must continue to be. And the old thing I always say, you can't put new wine into old wineskin. That's a meaning because it means a lot. Because the old contamination would kill the life of the good. Because it doesn't want to see good things prosper. You have to put new life into new things in order for things to be what it should be. And as we push forward to go in the fall, we'll be open and we want to be able to do the right thing. And when we do the right thing, we can't go wrong. Everybody is somebody, and everybody is important. And we should not mess over nobody, but we should have love and care for the soul of man. And so when I'm saying to us, it behooves us to make sure that from the community to the district to all of us, to have a checkup from our mindset to see where we are. And if we get our mindset, that we can push forward and do the great works and seeing good things happen and push forward. And that's all I have to say. Keep moving, y'all. We got to keep moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Here are my comments for this evening. I have gotten calls or communications, and in these calls and communications, some folks have recognized that I've been uh, quieter, that I have not been uh, as vocal. And they've asked why. The first thing that I want to let people know is that I am fully engaged in this work, in this board, in this district where my children attend school. But I am intentionally decreasing so Dr. Hurst can increase. I believe in Dr. Hurst and his ability to move our district forward. And I am decreasing because I believe that the spotlight needs to be on him. He is the person that we need to follow. That, in my opinion, means the board. That, in my opinion, means the staff. And that, in my opinion, means the community. I believe earnestly that this man is our best opportunity to get things right, finally, for all of our children. And I will not allow my vanity or anyone else's vanity to get in the way of that. So if you want to know why I am not as, or not seemingly as vocal as I have been, it's not because I do not care. It's not because I am not engaged. It is because I want the spotlight to be on my superintendent so he has the eyes and the ears of our community focused on him so he can lead us where we all have been trying to go for years. And I want to correct myself, not for years, for decades, for generations. And the truth is, board after board, superintendent after superintendent, we've never been able to get there as a community. So even though I'm on the school board, even though I am the board president, sometimes I need to shut up and actually listen to this man because he knows what he's doing. And the most important thing for me is that my children get a good education, not that I hear myself talk. So that's why you see me doing things differently. That's why you hear me communicating differently, because I want the focus to be on Dr. Hurst, because I want people to follow him, because I think that he's going to make it right. And I'm not saying that he's the Messiah, but I think he's the best chance we've ever had. And so I'm asking everybody to listen to that man and to follow him because that's what I'm doing. Those are my comments for this evening. And with that, I want to go to item H, which is the next scheduled Board of Education meeting. That's on August 4th. And with that, I would like to adjourn our meeting at 9:10. You all have a blessed evening. Good night.